Now, the rest of the story.
So, I'm just about done smoothing this ground out. Yeah, so no planning video right now. It's actually straight to smoothing the ground back out. So, got the planter started last night. That took about an hour and a half with all of the new stuff on it, which I think the new stuff, or adding the new stuff, is what caused some of the headaches, because we broke both of the drive pins, the shear pins, that are on the planter to protect any damage to the rows. So I had to go through and replace both of them. Also, we went through with the new Reveal row cleaners and had to adjust our height, which all of the row cleaners have their own gauge wheels, which have their own individual settings there. So by the time we went through and decided on what we wanted there, and then spun back around and decided on what pressure I wanted to run for the conditions we're currently in, because we're in conventional till right now, chiseled last fall. Hit with the Earthmaster once yesterday, and this stuff was wet. Excuse me. I'm pretty well getting over what I had though. The hard part is trying to decide what we want to do. The reason I'm doing this over planting right now is just because it's cold out. And it was 30 degrees out when I had to get up and get Relina ready to go. And then it's still only like 43 degrees out. It's not May 27th. If it was May 27th, you and I wouldn't be talking. I'd have things I should be working on. It is April 27th, and the big thing that I'm trying to do right now is not completely ruin this crop. Okay, not quite so much. Soybeans can take the abuse as far as the cold weather. They're inoculated, they're treated. They can sit in cold dirt for XYZ amount of time. I mean, there's been plenty of trials of guys doing it. Problem is that it can be really hit and miss. I'll be honest with you, $15 beans for this fall, $7 corn. It can be really stressful when you're planting a cheap crop, you know, when you're looking at $3 corn and $10 beans. Would you believe me if I said it is extremely stressful when you're planting a $7 a bushel crop and a $15 to the bushel crop? Well, that seems kind of silly, right? That's kind of what Andrew was saying. But the problem is that it doesn't take many mistakes, which you can lose yield the second the soil hits the dirt. You probably actually lose yield before the seed even leaves the bag if you're that unfortunate. But what you gotta worry about is when, like, seems how we're talking about soybeans right now, or at least that's what I'm working on. We'll use soybeans. $15 a bushel, and if I do something that costs me 5 bushels to the acre, that adds up really quick. And one of those things that I'm talking about is just that, planting into cold soil. Is it a guaranteed proven fact that the soybeans are going to yield just fine? Putting them into, I haven't even checked the soil temperature here lately. Is it a guaranteed no yield loss, no yield drag by planting into cool soil? I've heard guys say that you can plant into cold soil, you can plant into wet soil, but you can't plant into cold and wet soil. So a lot of guys around the country, you could definitely see, at least that's what it really seems to me, is a lot of guys are taking the more cautious approach. There aren't a lot of guys running. I mean, there's some, yeah, don't get me wrong, we went up and got some parts this morning, And I think, what did we see? We saw two guys working dirt, one guy running a corn planter, and then two guys running a grain drill. You know, as in, you don't really know. They could be putting beans in with a grain drill, don't get me wrong, but I think the one guy was putting grass, oats, something in that regard. But I mean, you can only tell so much by going by at 60 miles an hour looking out the window. So I think everybody is just more or less taking the hurry up and wait approach. Would really like to see some warmer temperatures. And the problem what we've had here, especially when it comes to the weather guy, is that for the last 2 weeks, warm weather has been 2 days away for the last 2 weeks. And what I mean by that is, point in case, today is Wednesday. For this upcoming Saturday, they're calling for an 85% chance of rain and 67 degrees. Okay. Well, I checked it again this morning. They're calling for an 85% chance of rain and 60 degrees. And then that 60 degree day is now the warmest day for the next, what, 6-7 days, 8 to 10 days, I believe. Which it's changing almost hourly. And the warm weather, we've had a couple sporadic nice days. Don't get me wrong, but we're not getting that consistent warm up that we need. And then when it's dropping us back down and to below freezing every night, I mean, the grass isn't growing even. So I mean, the grass is green. Dad and I went down to the grass valley this morning just because I wanted to see what was happening, and it's greened up. I mean, it's a nice, pretty green, don't get me wrong, nice dark green. The fertilizer's doing its job. Have some winter kill, some bare spots there on the one field I'm more than just a little bit concerned about, to be honest. But something will grow. It's just that pastures aren't growing, and if the grass isn't willing to grow, our new seeding that we put in a week and a half ago now has shown no signs of really growing. Is there much incentive to be putting in your row crops if they're just going to sit in cold, wet dirt? We got to worry about the ground crusting over if it's going to rain real hard, because you get a real hard pounding rain and then it warms up and bakes the soil. That'll make a layer of concrete that, I mean, basically a pickaxe is your best chance of getting anything through it, let alone any soybeans or corn seed, corn plants. So the way things are standing right now, I'm willing to put soybeans in to a certain degree, to a certain point. I'm not willing to put any corn in the ground. And hopefully in another week, things will improve. We get to the 1st of May. I mean, caution's going to start getting thrown more and more to the wind if the forecast keeps calling for chances of rain and no real chances to even get in the field and put the crop in. Because as of right now, they're calling at 9 o'clock this morning for a tenth of an inch of rain, of snow, a snow accumulation, and then chance of rain tomorrow night, a chance of rain at 1 o'clock, which the snow or the rain didn't happen, so maybe we won't get it. Maybe the rain will start backing off a little bit. Like Dad said, and like Grandpa always used to say, you never really wanted to swear at the weather because too hot, too cold, too dry, too wet. You start complaining about it, and then it'll go the other way, and either the water will shut off entirely, or the sun will come out and just completely burn you, or so. I mean, it's it's farming. That's right. That's a happy laugh. That's not a frustration laugh. It's farming. If it was easy, literally everybody would do it. So we don't have a whole lot to worry about yet. It's not like it's the Dust Bowl here. I've seen a lot of pictures from out in Nebraska and Kansas, and I think maybe even the Dakotas, of they are very dry to where all their dirt is blowing. I'm grateful we don't have to deal with that. I mean, having to work the ground yesterday to get the ground to dry out so I could plant isn't ideal, but I think I'd rather do that than plant into bone dry soil that hasn't seen any moisture in the last how many months and then sit and hope for a rain so it'll germinate. So the drag chain harrow is actually working pretty good. I mean, I planted this stuff at 1.5 inches down, and I went through, harrowed everything, which the reason I do that is it does help level the field off. Any of the ridges and whatnot we have are leveled off again. As far as worrying about our seed depth by harrowing it, Brian was actually the first one that'll say it, that, well, if you're planting at 1.5 inches, you go through and harrow it. He's like, you're just going to bury them. That's true to a certain degree. I mean, it's not like it 1.5 inches is, it all has to be 1.5 inches or it won't grow. I mean, I've seen soybeans sprout on concrete. Not all this dirt that I'm moving is landing on top of the rows. So that's something to keep in mind too. I mean, yeah, I might be putting 1/4 inch, whatnot, of dirt on the rows, but we've been doing this for how many years, and not trying to sound like we've been doing this for forever, so we're just going to keep doing it. But we've been doing it long enough, and I've seen the results of it that I'm happy enough that I want to keep doing it. I mean, actually, even last year, I had Ryan go through and harrowed a bunch of my ground that was going to corn before I planted it. Broke up any of the clumps or whatnot, basically worked as a crumbler, and planting into that was actually pretty freaking awesome. I mean, it's actually kind of frustrating. I had wind damage down through here, and there's a fair amount of ears down through here yet. And if I could have picked up every single ear that was knocked over from the wind and gotten it into the combine and ran it out down the road, put some wheels underneath it, I would have liked to know what this farm would have actually yielded, because it did yield well over 200 bushel to the acre. But I saw Ryan's video of us harvesting it, and it did have plenty of down corn on it. My battery's pretty well out, guys. Gotta go work in the corn planter a little bit. I mean, I don't really know if I'll even be running this thing again. I mean, it's kind of up in the air. But we're not doing the hectic long, gotta get it in running yet. That's probably gonna happen. We get into May, and I mean, we don't have much for corn or beans in. Hopefully the beans will be moving along here, but running around the clock is not something that we're afraid to do, which I don't think any farmer is going to be afraid to do that, not with the prices that we're looking at. So, thanks for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. Make sure you take care, take it easy, keep in touch. Tune in next time, which I'm pretty much carrying the camera on me at all times, and I don't know if you just, I'll just keep posting until you guys tell me to stop, I guess, and we'll go from there. So I'll talk to you later.